The world is a diverse and beautiful place. Have you ever wanted to travel the globe, exploring one exotic land, and waking up the next day somewhere completely different? Experiencing the nature, the people, the culture, the art, ancient and new. Come along with me. From ice to desert, beaches to mountains, in the jungle, in the city, and everywhere in between. Soaking in the splendor Mother Earth and all her inhabitants have to show us. By air, by land, by sea, this is Around the World at the Speed of Mike.
After leaving Istanbul, Turkey, and a layover in Athens, Greece, I took a red-eye to Beirut, Lebanon. As an American, I didn't need a visa to get into the country, just my passport, and no additional cost, which is always a good thing. Ideally, I would have given myself a week to see everything in the country, but in this case, I only had one full day. Reason being is just because it was a cheaper flight if I had left, at that point, just one day. So that's just one of those speed of Mike things where, I didn't see a lot of stuff. Fortunately, the country is really small. From Beirut, you can get anywhere in 2 hours, basically. So the main reason I went to Lebanon was to see the ancient Roman ruins of Baalbek. And there's several ways to get there. Originally, I was going to rent a car, but you need an international driver's license to do that. You can't just use your American one like you can in some countries. So that was out. There's plenty of super cheap buses that go all over Lebanon, but they aren't really listed and you can't book them or anything, so it was difficult for me to plan how to get around. If I had a week, I would have definitely tried it. I would have had a margin for error. In this case, I didn't. So I did something I normally try to avoid, which is go on a tour group. And I've been on plenty of tours, and they're never bad, really. I usually love them, have a great time. But it's just the sense of freedom that you have when you go and do stuff on your own completely. I really enjoy that, so it was kind of hard for me to actually book it, but it didn't disappoint me at all. I was really happy to go. It was an awesome time. The group I went with was called Nakhal Tours, or Nicole Excursions. They're 2 miles north of the airport. I just walked straight from the airport there. I hate taking taxis. Interesting thing is the British Travel Advisory website for their government says not to go to this area. But I don't know, I look like a gigantic, ignorant tourist with my huge backpack and nothing happened to me. I'm not saying definitely go like that, like I did, but it was fine. When I showed up to the office, they luckily had one seat open. I didn't book it or anything. That's another speed of Mike kind of thing I do sometimes. So we left in a minivan and it went over these snow-covered mountains, which was awesome because I love that contrast of snow and kind of an arid desert area. The first town was Anjar. It's like an Armenian populated area. And they have ruins from the Umayyad Empire. Umayyad? They're from the 8th century. That was pretty cool. Next stop was Baalbek. That was easily the best. I'll talk about that later. And then I went to a restaurant for traditional Lebanese food, which was really good. And then Kassar Winery, which had kind of an older cave system where they store the wine. Also nice, but Baalbek was the best. Baalbek is probably the best Roman ruin structure, or Greco-Roman ruins I've seen in my entire life. Compared to the Acropolis, it's at least as good, if not better. The Acropolis has better geography, kind of blending to its aesthetics. It's on a big plateau in the middle of the city, so it's a better location too. Baalbek just seems more complete, more extensive. There's just more to it in some ways. And I think the biggest plus for it is that there really aren't any big crowds in it. The Temple of Bacchus is just gargantuan. I don't know if it's actually bigger than the Acropolis. I think it probably is. The columns just look huge. Considering how detailed and fine the sculpture work is, it's just amazingly well preserved. Some of the stonework you see isn't actually from the original Roman construction. Most of it is, but the temple complex was conquered and destroyed, basically, several times in the past 1,000 years. So each time an army would come in, they would kind of rebuild the defenses around it, so the walls have fairly different looking stones on top of them. That would just make the walls higher and more defensible. The temple saw damage just as recently as 2006 in Lebanon's war with Israel. Baalbek itself, the town, is kind of a Hezbollah stronghold, and that was Israel's main opponent in the war. You can see their shirts right outside the temple complex. It's kind of funny. Or maybe not funny, but... Baalbek is also just under 10 miles away from the Syrian border, I think. So when you're driving in between the towns of Anjar and Baalbek, you can see all these Syrian refugee camps all over the place. I think they might be getting rid of them soon because the war seems to be winding down in Syria, hopefully. While there was a little bit of spillover from the Syrian war, aside from refugees, there was actual violence at points. Kind of ISIS and Al-Qaeda tried to infiltrate the country and cause a ruckus there, but fortunately they didn't have anything to the scale that you saw in Syria, and the country is pretty much completely safe. In the past 2 years, there hasn't really been any kind of violence, so that's really fortunate. Hey, if you'd like to see more videos like that, make sure to subscribe to my channel, and check out the rest of my videos around the world at the speed of Mike.